Welcome, everyone listening or watching this podcast. I'm your host, Arun. Each week, in collaboration with Narcissus, the founder of Last Week in Denmark, we bring you the latest news and insights that matter most to the expat community here in Denmark.
Hello, everyone. This is basically a second attempt at the Last Week in Denmark podcast. You probably have seen, or not, sorry, you have listened to the first podcast a couple of months ago. Unfortunately, due to various reasons, we couldn't continue that project, but now we are back into a new format. Arun has reached out to us and said, hey, why don't we revive that project and do it together? And we were like, yes, why not? And he proposed, let's do it on video instead of just audio. We're gonna still continue with the audio, so you're still gonna be able to listen to us on Spotify, on Apple Podcasts, and all the other platforms that you prefer to use. But you can also see us now on YouTube. We might not be the best models out there for watching for an entire half an hour, but it's more about what we say and less about how we look like, right? And what's more interesting is that actually this time we try to see if we put a European, ergo me, Romanian, and Arun, a non-European, I guess India, right, Arun? Yeah. Then if we put the two of us together, then to see if we discuss the news that are happening in Denmark from perspective from the two lives that are happening, because many people don't understand that internationals are not one full unit. We have and we go through wildly different experiences even between the same ethnic group, but if we are to find parallels, I would say that the non-Europeans are having a much harder life here in Denmark than us as Europeans. And it's interesting to see that what did they go through and what do we go through in by approaching different subjects out there.
I could see that there's a lot of topics about around state of Denmark. There's news about weekly political overview, and there's also focus areas where you have uh, topics about foods and technology, uh, climate neutral by 2050. So we'll start with the first one, which is something that you wanted to talk more about, and that is, if I'm not wrong, is it about euthanasia that we started talking about?
You want to start this podcast with a very very strong topic, I guess, right? It's something people don't really want to touch or they don't want to think about, especially in our age. I mean, relatively, we're still in our youth, so we don't think much about that. But we are also at a certain stage in our youth where we
Mm,
do have some relatives who pass away, right? Or they are
mm,
in a situation to be at the end of life. So we get to face this, and the older we get, the closer we get
mm,
to 40 or to 50, the more we're gonna have to face this as part of our life, right? So
mm.
euthanasia is what is euthanasia? What do you think is euthanasia in your mind?
I did some Google search while we spoke about it, and it says the painless killing of a patient suffering from incurable or painless disease, and it is actually illegal in most countries. So how is this legal in Denmark, or
It's
why
not yet
suddenly this
legal.
topic is Denmark? Ah, okay, so it's not
It's not
legal.
yet legal. Actually, the Ethics Council in Denmark, which is a very big and very highly respected council, has said
Mm,
we should not do this. We should
mm,
not legalize euthanasia, but the current prime minister, Mette Frederiksen, she supports it. She finds it as necessary because there should be a dignity in your
mm,
last moment. So you should be able to choose when it's time to go instead of
okay.
suffering and going through terrible, terrible situations. So it's a question about allowing um, allowing the state to let. It's a question of liberty, to be honest. Should people
Mm,
be allowed to decide that they want to die, and who should be
mm,
responsible for the death? Should it be the state? So should it be the
mm,
doctor that comes and makes the injection? Should they just give some pills to the
mm,
patient, and the patient has to take them themselves, or
mm,
should a relative come and do it for
mm.
them? So that's the question, right? So, but people are afraid to allow or to open such a discussion where the government can regulate how you die. Right now, the only way you can legally die is by natural causes, or if someone
Mm.
illegally kills you, right?
Mm.
So
I'm a bit
right now,
curious
it's a challenge of
because
natural.
yeah. The curiosity that I have is the patient in a good state of mind that he or she chooses to say, okay, I'm not going to take this anymore. I'm through a lot of pain and I want to end my life. It could also be a mental state where people are not, I would say, 100% themselves. So how in this situation can someone's consent be? Is it fine to actually terminate one's life by a statement?
Well, it's not enough just a statement. I
Mm.
think there will be other things taken in consideration. Like, for
Mm.
example, can they ever recover from it? Is that
Mm.
possibility, or it's incurable? Because some diseases are simply incurable, right?
Mm.
There's nothing more to be done there besides
Mm.
waiting. Um, so that's the question. You cannot use legal euthanasia on patients that can recover. So this
Mm.
cannot be used as a way to suicide. I know a lot of people are now call it state-assisted suicide, which is a sad way
Okay.
because people who are against it obviously they're going to find ways to portray it in a negative way. So now they're
Mm.
trying to call it not legal euthanasia because it's a difficult word and most people don't know it, and
Mm.
simply call it state-assisted suicide,
Mm.
which is it's a bit unfair to to call it in that way because you cannot call suicide something that you know is going to happen. It's just a matter of is it today or is it in 2 weeks from now.
Mm.
Uh, that's the question, right? So I this is a talk show, right? So it's not a political talk show. We're not going to take sides. We're just
Yeah.
going to say, yeah, the government would like it to happen. There's a lot of resistance to it. There's a huge network of celebrities and
Mm.
health professionals who are against it,
Mm.
who are afraid that this can can misuse it. Then can they can
Mm.
misuse it as a way to suicide.
Mm.
So it's a difficult question, and it's not easy to be covered in a little bit of time.
I
But
could imagine.
it's a
Yeah.
question of would you like to have that option, Arun? If you
Mm.
are having incurable disease, would you like to have the option to have a dignified death, or would you prefer to go through the most excruciating situations and maybe not the most dignifying situation?
I would choose the one which is dignified, obviously. Yeah, because yeah, at least that is how I feel. My gut says I lived enough. I've lived a life worth living, and then when it is time to go, I think I will choose the one which is dignified, in my opinion.
So
And
that's the whole approach in here because
I
I
get
mean
it.
in most countries it is illegal, fair enough, but there is still
Mm.
countries where it is legal, like for example
Mm.
Netherlands.
Okay.
So I'm not sure about US or the big countries to be honest outside of
Mm.
Europe, but what about India? Do you know by any chance if this is legal?
I don't think so. It's not legal yet. And of course, there's a lot of laws have been passed on if it's like you said incurable diseases, then they ask their belongings if they're too old and weak, and they actually ask the consent from belonging, is it okay? But I don't
Okay.
know if it's actually legal to do it.
Ah,
My experiences goes with what my relatives and third degree connections have said, and I think it's a decision that the family members make if their, let's say, great grandmother or grandmother is too weak to be able to medicate further, and those exceptional cases they also get a consent from belongings as a, and that's very subjective to those families, right? But I don't know if it's actually legal, and I'm honestly sure it's a broad topic to also to consider what goes into the law of
I, f- I think this
yeah.
is just at the beginning, the whole discussion. Yes, there's some countries who are early adopters who already done
Mm.
this. There's other countries who are on their way. And I think there will be a lot of pushback as well from the conservatives or from
mm,
people who say like life is sacred, humans should not
mm,
have the right to decide on life. Because I think many people are using this argument actually, saying life is
mm,
sacred, there is some
mm,
sort of spirit behind, and
mm,
we should allow only higher beings to decide,
mm,
not us. So humans should not
mm,
decide about other humans' life. That's kind of
mm,
so. That's why many people are against it, not necessarily because
mm,
of political reasons, but mainly, actually,
mm,
to be honest, actually because of religious reasons. Uh,
mm.
but I
Yeah.
think we covered enough this legal
Yeah.
euthanasia. You know it goes because right now, what I can tell you is going to be a battle in Denmark between the
Mm,
anti side and between the ones who want to pass it. So we will
mm.
be talking about this in the next many weeks for sure.
Okay.
Again,
Cool.
what else
Let's
got you?
let's jump into a political agreement from 2006 about the retirement age increase.
Ooh,
Let's talk about it.
another one.
Yeah.
Another tough one. We go from the dignified way of dying to dignified way of retirement. Unfortunately, Arun, it doesn't look very good for us. I looked at the website. If you guys gonna check the newsletter on Sunday when it comes, there is a link where you can press and see when you can retire. So you put your birth date, and it's gonna tell you the age when you can retire. Uh,
Seriously?
yeah, just
Is there
check
a
on
link?
the Danish
Okay.
economy and you'll find it.
Ah.
In the meantime, while you look for yours, mine was that I can retire when I will be 74 years old, because the life expectancy in 2063, when I can
Yeah.
finally retire, is is gonna be up to 87 years old. So they expect you. So they expect you to pay pension for you for 13 to 14 years old only.
Hmm.
Um, so so at 74 I can finally retire. So I'm curious, Arun, when is your retirement age?
So you are saying that you're going to retire in 2074.
No,
Okay.
at
In
74 years
20
old.
at 74 years old. Oh my God, sorry. I'm just
2063.
seeing the chart. I'm just seeing the chart. It says 2024 people retire at 67 and at 2040 people retire at
But
70.
Arun, there's a link in there where you can put your birth date. If it says find out when you can retire by using this calculator,
Okay.
press on the calculator link.
I'm just looking. Okay, I'm checking at my the link that you shared with me. Let
Yeah,
me put in my day.
let's see.
Insert your birthday. Okay.
Time to find out
1992.
when
Okay.
can Arun retire.
Okay, I can actually retire at the age of 73.5.
Okay,
And now I'm
half a year
32.
before me.
So I can retire
No,
at
but
2081.
in 2081 you can retire.
No,
Oh
I
my
think I could
God.
retire in 2065, but I could get the, I think, what do you call, you could go for pension. I
Yeah,
can
yeah,
retire at 2065.
yeah. In 2065 you can retire, and then you expect to get pension for like 15 years, so till
Yes.
2081. Yeah.
Ah, okay.
So
But here's the thing. So I have to work for 73.5 years. Is that what
yeah,
you're trying to say? Okay.
yeah.
And what was your number?
74.
74. Okay. How old are you, man?
Um, yeah. Well, 34.
Okay.
Yeah. What about
Okay.
you?
So yes, I'm 32.
Okay. After 30
Almost
is
the same.
crazy. It's 30 something. Nobody really knows after 30 how old anyone is anyway. All we know now is when you can retire with a public pension. And about
Okay.
fun fact, in Denmark, even if you have not worked at all,
Mm,
when it's retirement age, you can still get a public pension. It's the only country in
mm.
the world that has this. So
But
even if you
is
have
it
not
a?
worked at all,
I'm just curious. Should I have to go at pension at 73
mate,
or
you'll
should
be
I get
74. Do you understand that? Listen to that number again.
74?
74. Are you really telling me that you're gonna still be like entrepreneurial and starting the next Uber when you're 74?
I'm not sure even if I live at that age, but it would be but it would be
No, but
interesting what I will do at 74.
your question is like this. You're allowed when you retire to still earn money on the side. You can still have a
mm,
business running. It has
mm,
nothing to do with your pension. So
mm,
there's a minimum pension in Denmark that everyone has to get.
mm,
Then
mm,
you get pension based on how much you worked. So you have
mm,
the basic pension, which is for everyone. Then you have the second level of pension, which is based on how much you worked. So that one can change depending if you make too much money when you retire. So let's say that you have still a very high income from your work, then it will be
mm,
difficult to get a high pension from your second layer of pension, right? So,
mm,
and then you have a third level of pension. If you are working in some special, like let's say in industry or something, you have this industry pension, which is your third layer of pension. Basically, it's like a,
mm,
let's just say, a private pension, but it's paid by your employer. So you have
mm,
one, two, three level of pensions, and then it can be your own private pensions and whatever else you're doing on the side, basically. But the whole discussion here is about, should retirement be blocked at 70, like
mm,
the Social Democrats want to do now? They say, okay, in 2040 it will be 70 years old, and from there on it stops at 70 till 2100. Or
mm,
should it be following the life expectancy, because we are living longer, that's the fact.
mm, mm.
And so you were worried you will not reach 74. Math and statistics say you will, but
I'm just questioning the math here because I think we honestly Denmark is a really good country. The climate is good. It's not polluted, and the average life expectancy of Danish people, yes, I agree, they live longer. But I have lived up almost half or maybe 25 years until 25 years old in India. So how do they get this number of average? Is it only survey from Danish citizens, or is it generally the people who live in Denmark? Because that could change, right?
yeah, it's to be honest, this research are based on people living in Denmark, so it's hard
Yeah,
to
makes
say.
sense.
It's hard to say
Mm,
how much it impacts your
yeah,
life
yeah,
from your life
true,
spent in other
true.
countries.
In India, the number is actually quite less, and I think I'll be frank here. But of course, uh, I would
Now you
say
live here,
different parts of
so
India. Now I live here, so assume that I have an average life expectancy in that 87 range, which is
no,
which
but
is good
it's
to
a fair
know.
point that you raised actually. Yeah, if you come at 40 years old with your family, right? You lived
Yeah,
half of your time
yeah,
abroad.
yeah,
That means that chances are you'll not end at the same ending
yeah, yeah.
line with
Yeah, it's a
average
lifestyle that
population.
chooses how much you can live healthy. I've seen this lifestyle of Denmark compared to India is a healthy lifestyle. I'll always compare with how my uncles and aunties used to live. Of course, it's very subjective topic, but in general, I've seen a lot of activities that people do here, and the ecosystem is a bit different, and that shows in the data that there's a lot of older people live in Denmark, but also older people have also have higher expectancy rate in Denmark. But in India, I think the number is less, and also yeah, and I think even if I choose to retire in Denmark on a long run, my number could improve for sure because I will have a healthy lifestyle.
But
But I'm
I think what you can do is take your number from India, because you could make a math calculation here. Take the number from Denmark, take the number
yeah,
from India. Say, okay,
yeah,
I lived I don't know, 25% of my life in India and
yeah,
75% in Denmark, and then you average the 25% with 75%, and you get your number.
yeah.
But this actually raises a question maybe for the future when there will be
Mm,
more internationals living in Denmark,
there will be, yeah.
especially many that move during their 30s or 40s, would be
Mm,
that okay? That means an international will actually benefit pension from Denmark a lot less than a Dane
native
who's
citizens,
born
yeah.
here.
Mm,
So
true,
what about that? Yeah, right. Like as they keep
yeah.
saying, oh, they're taking our benefits and they go away, but should they think about it? They live less. Internationals live less.
Mm,
They
mm.
don't live as long as the Danes, right? Because your
Yeah,
body has been exposed to different, yeah, health conditions
yeah,
for a
yeah, yeah.
couple
It's
of
also
decades.
subjective. Of course, there are a lot of healthy Indians, and I've seen them in real life as well. But as the statistics goes, by the statistics, I think it's comparatively lesser on the average Indian
Yeah,
because there's a
but
lot of
we when we talk
Yeah,
public economy, we only talk about statistics. We don't talk about
statistics. Yeah,
exceptional cases where
yeah,
people,
exactly.
because
Yeah,
you,
yeah.
you don't make political decisions on the situation of Johnny and Maria, who lived till 130 and they play tennis all their life and they eaten only apples. Now, every
Okay.
politician, every public economist, they only look at numbers, and you are numbers. Yeah, sad to say,
Yeah.
we are numbers. Uh, what are the numbers saying? So that's how you can make discussions on
Mm,
making
mm,
changes or designing
mm,
societies, right? You can only
mm,
look at
mm.
statistics. That's I know many people hated statistics probably in university or high school, depending if you had statistics in high school, but they're a lot more important than you imagine, to be honest. They
Yeah.
kind of read the future and tell us about the past a lot.
But also, as an expert, I go into the statistics Denmark page and I get a lot of insights, things that I am completely ignorant about. And it makes a lot of sense to me, even though the numbers reflect 2022 or 2023 maximum, but
It
it kind
takes
of gives an
time.
idea, right? It takes
Yeah.
time, but it's also like giving a high level information about how many expats live in Denmark and average income, a lot of these topics, everything that you want to know. I would say it's
I'm a bit
a
I'm very happy with how good we are at collecting information here and
mm,
presenting it publicly because I have a
mm,
hard time finding other EU countries who can present to me up to the
hmm.
last Q how many Romanians live where, how many people live here. No, seriously,
Okay. How
it's
do you
not
compare
simple
data
statistics.
with Denmark and other countries? That is it fine enough that you have a lot of information about indbyggeri, what is it, in immigrants? Yeah,
I wouldn't call them immigrants. I don't like that word. I would just say
that's how
international.
it's a good. Yeah, internationals. Yeah, yeah. According to that graph, it's labeled as immigrants due to work, immigrants due to asylum,
Yeah.
and then there are different classifications. But it paints an overview of where people come from, and everything is like live. But yeah, with a quarter or a half yearly delay, I'd say the latest data was actually 2023-ish, and also about
So by now we
jobs
should
and
have Q1 2024.
yeah, first quarter of 2024. Yes,
Yeah,
you're right.
should have the
Mm,
Q1 for 2024. So
yeah,
I
yeah,
think it's fine enough to be honest, and I like that. It gives me a very
yeah.
good picture of what's the situation with, for example, my
Mm,
own community in Denmark and
mm,
where are they coming and what are
mm,
they doing and so
mm.
on. But as I said, now
Good.
the discussion further on will be about what should be. Should
Mm,
we freeze retirement age at 70 or should we allow it to follow expectancy age? And
mm.
that's the question here. The government wants to freeze it, but many economists have come and said, well, if you freeze it, it's going to cost 40 billion kronas a year.
Okay.
Why? Because the ratio of elderly compared to working people will be much higher, and that will only increase with every decade. And the number of
Mm.
children born is lower with every decade. So
Ah.
simply there's too few people working to pay for the pensions of people living in 2060 or 2050, right? Going on retirement on 2050, 2060. Simply the number of people getting pension is too high. It's a huge
Mm,
burden for the state, right? So,
mm,
so I understand why they want to freeze the 70 because people will start losing trust in, okay, should I even bother to pay pension in Denmark if 74 sounds horribly long and horribly
mm,
far, right? So that's why I understand the government's thinking, but also I understand that the reason why they made this agreement in 2006 was that they had to find a solution to the pension crisis. There was a huge
mm,
debate 10 years ago about pension crisis in Europe. Many countries will be simply defaulting on it by
mm.
2040, roughly around there. So Denmark actually among the few countries in Europe who found a solution to it. Simply, you live longer, then you retire later.
Mm.
Simple as
Contribute
that.
more. Yeah.
It's a good model or not. I mean, I still cannot imagine a 74-year-old, I don't know, a nurse
Mm.
making an injection, right? That can
Oh
then
yeah.
really backfire. So I don't
Mm,
know. I mean, some of us, I'm a consultant, right? I can do my work till I'm 74, no problem. But
mm,
if I am going on the factory line and I
mm,
beat the thing, I will not be able to beat as hard when I'm 74, right?
mm.
Uh, and many
That.
other situations. I think there's jobs that simply either we, I think a more fair more fair way to look at it, just a personal
mm,
opinion, would be to differentiate between the work you do. If
mm,
you do a certain type of work, is it possible to actually retire at 74? No. Then when? When is it
mm,
biologically possible to be able
mm,
to work a certain job or not? But then it opens up a whole Pandora box of various
mhm,
lobbying interests. The nurse union will fight with the electrician union, will fight because
mm,
we are in Denmark, we are organized here. People fight for their
mm.
interests. Um,
But
so
I'm curious to know what sort of jobs will be in the future. For example, as a start point, even in India, IT is booming, and it is still in India. IT is booming, but there's also certain age groups which are thriving in IT. For example, a graduate, and then until the age of 35, he owns IT, and he has a lot of experience. He gets into a lot of corporate ladder leadership roles, and at a certain point where it is 35, 40ish, then the trend goes back to the youngsters, and they hire youngsters, and they get into those ladders. So there is a threshold for IT, people who thrive in IT.
wow.
And do you think the same will exist in Denmark, that are you hireable after 50-ish? And what are the jobs that will be available for people at 50 plus in the future? And this is again going to be a debate for the countries, because what sort of jobs will the government be able to provide for 60 plus people in the age where technology is like trying to shape? And there's going to be a battle between opportunity versus people having to find jobs. And
I think, Arun, the problem here is that India can afford to exchange people again and
mm,
again, because you have a lot of young people, a lot of
yeah.
cohorts of young people. We don't
Mm,
have that luxury in Denmark. I think
mm, mm,
in Denmark you see more often government and municipalities asking elderly people to come back to work, or saying, please stay
mm.
a few longer, a few more years. We
That
don't
is
have
true.
who to replace
Mm,
you. So I wouldn't say we have this situation where we can simply, yeah, you're
mm,
40 now, now go do something else. We'll take someone new to do your job. I don't see it here, honestly speaking,
mm,
and I don't. I see here, if you have a job that you know how to do well, then
mm.
most likely they will want you to stay there until you're 74.
That is
So
actually good. That is actually good to know, because then you at least have a security that you have a job. Government jobs
stability
in
is very
India
important here.
have the stability, but the private companies, I don't think so. It's also a competitive landscape that people always look for fresh ideas and cheap labor force, and then this good combination. Every company wants it. He is cheap to hire, he or she is cheap to hire, but also creative enough to explore new boundaries and come out of those stereotypes. But I have this experience working in India, and the older you get, you also become more insecure. Will I be hireable if I go to another company? So I will stay with this company as long as I wish to. And
Okay,
yeah, I've seen this in many
but now you're
people
in
that I've met.
Denmark, and here you don't have to go through such.
That is a nice question. I actually think, like, I had this conversation with my mom many months ago. My mom always wanted me to work in a government job, because government job in India is the most secure job you can ever find. You can retire in a government job, you get good benefits, pension, just like the Danish promises. And it's also like a sign of a good son, that he is doing his duties properly, and parents' dream is to son to get a good job, a decent job,
Yes.
a government job. But I don't like working in a government job, because I haven't seen challenges in the jobs that I've applied for. So it's always interesting for me to work with private companies. But when I came to Denmark, when I worked for big companies, it feels like a government job, because, of course, I'm now thinking about job security. I'm now thinking about my family responsibilities, and now I need security. Back in the days when I was younger, it was just challenges and something exciting to play with. But now I started feeling like, what I would do is to have a secured income, so to balance out my responsibilities. And I realized my mom was right at certain point, that stability in monthly income is important. And I told my mom, now I'm in a government company, even though it is not a government company, it's a pretty stable environment. I think it's a good point that you made, that people are not just fired because of their age, or yeah. But that's good, interesting point that you brought out.
if people are fired because of their age, that would just land them with a huge lawsuit from the people fired, and they can go
And
home with a very nice severance pay. So
ah,
I'll be shocked if someone does that. But look, I'm now in the position of being a business owner, right? So
mm,
I when I find good people, I want them to
mm,
stay as long as physically possible. So in Denmark, is more about you losing your best employees to other companies,
mm,
them searching for better opportunities out there. So there's two perspectives here. Me as a business owner, I want you to stay as long as possible. You as an
mm,
employee will want to move away after 3 years
mm,
to a different job so your salary can keep increasing faster.
mm, mm,
So in Denmark, I will actually encourage you that, again, now I am taking the side of the employees. Um, I will encourage you that you change your job after 2 3 years, because you will have a faster increase on your salary than if you
mm,
wait for your salary to increase at the same job. Simply, that's the
mm,
reality of it.
mm,
So, and we are in a market where we have an unemployment rate of barely 2%. What we have 80,000 people who don't have a job. It's
mm.
extremely low. It's a
Yeah, yeah.
market where it's not about. It's literally you choose if you're obviously if you're capable. I'm not talking
Mm,
now that there is still situations where some people don't fit in the market because there's simply too many of the same profile, or yes, there are mismatches. So some people will not feel themselves that they fit in this. Oh, there's 2%
mm,
unemployment rate. Why in the hell I cannot find a job?
mm,
So just because there's a very low unemployment rate, you also have to take into consideration smaller numbers, like how many people
mm,
with your profile are needed on the market. Is it already
mm,
oversaturated? Is it good number? Because if you're a nurse, people will be like beating at the door and say, "Please come and work for
mm,
me."
mm,
If
mm,
you are a cybersecurity expert, again, there's like
mm,
thousands of them needed in the country right now,
mm,
especially
mm.
that we are attacked like crazy every day in our
Yeah,
infrastructure.
yeah, yeah.
So
Current situation. Yeah.
depends what you can do. Like if
Mm.
every time I see an IT professional, I say go in cybersecurity. That's your most. If you want to
In
make a
demand
hundred
job.
thousand salary per month in
Mm,
3 years from now, go in
mm,
cybersecurity.
mm.
I cannot advise a better.
That is true. The expats listening to this the conversation, I think you already heard from Narcis that the most in demand job right now is in IT, and it's also in cybersecurity. Absolutely,
It's not
I agree.
just sorry no in IT is cybersecurity, but it's not the most in demand. The most in demand is still healthcare, by
In
far.
Yeah, but in sectors, right? And in
Yeah.
IT, cybersecurity by far, yes,
Yes.
because the
Yes.
situation in the global geopolitical situation, yes, yes,
So if you
yeah. Of
want to,
course,
for example,
pharmaceutical will always be there.
yeah, of course. I mean, what's also good. I mean, if you have any sort of job that somehow can fit within pharma production,
Mm,
uh, yeah, right. We becoming a pharma state, a country
mm.
where pharmaceutical companies are
Yeah,
thriving. They're getting bigger
yeah,
and
yeah,
bigger.
yeah, yeah, yeah.
So any sort of profile fitted with such a company, there are jobs out there. From what I know,
Yeah,
there's
yeah.
3,000 new jobs being opened north of Copenhagen just
Crazy,
a couple of
crazy
months.
openings. I would say there's a list in LinkedIn. If you go and check, they are hiring like crazy. They need more people, and they're actually finding it difficult to find within Denmark. So they're actually hiring from outside Denmark,
Yeah, but
Europeans, and they're even
also
further
because
reaching out to
they need
non-Europeans.
specific profiles.
Yeah, but here comes the
Again,
topic. It's about positive list that is published every 6 months, and you mentioned about the in-demand jobs, right? And I've seen this positive list. Uh, they also change quite frequently. If you see, the current demand is, of course, all these management jobs, and also a specialist in pharmaceuticals and specialist in IT, and there's a lot of relation between positive lists and also jobs that are posted in work in Denmark page and also in
makes sense.
LinkedIn jobs. Yeah, yeah, I
But for the
agree.
ones who are Europeans and following this podcast, what is a positive list, right? Because you guys don't know what that is. That is,
Ah, okay.
we don't have to care about that. So,
Seriously? Okay.
yeah,
Ah,
as a Europeans, we have the right to move to Denmark whenever we please,
okay.
and that's how it is. We don't have to fulfill some requirements.
You have extra privileges. I could see that. It's
Yeah, that's what I
in
said. Yes,
yeah.
yes, we have extra privilege. So as an as a non-European, unfortunately, you need
Yeah,
to be able to get a visa to come to Denmark. You need to
exactly.
fit in one of the many programs that are out there, and one of them is positive list. So if you can
Correct.
work a certain job that is on
Mm.
that list, you can actually work it for a lower salary than the minimum required for non-Europeans. Actually, the only minimum salary we have in Denmark is for non-Europeans, which are not on the positive list. So if you're on a positive list, you can get a normal salary that is for the others in the country as well. But if you're not on the
Mm.
positive list and still want to come here and a company wants to hire you, they have to give you a very extravagant salary of more than 400,000 kronas per year, which, to be honest, for most of us Europeans is a lot of money. We don't get paid that much.
Okay,
You know?
that's interesting topic. I think we should talk about it sometime in the future. I'm
Yeah.
extra curious about how that works, and maybe we could actually have a podcast by that topic itself. With the interest of time, what do we talk more about, Narcis?
You wanted to ask me about driver's license.
Oh
You're doing
yeah,
your driver's license now, right?
yeah. Let me get to the point. I think after 5.5 years in Denmark, I decided finally to get my driver's license.
I'm also
I've
taking mine right
actually
now, by the way.
Seriously? Okay, why are you are a Romanian, and I think you already are part of EU. You still want to get a driver's license? How does it
I
work for
didn't
you?
have one.
Okay.
I never took one in my life, so I'm taking my first driving license ever.
My God. Okay. Wow.
Yeah.
That also makes sense that you never depended on driving. Is it because you never thought you would want to drive somewhere, or in general, or you don't
I
want to
never
have
really
own?
liked it, so it's a personal choice
Okay.
there, but I also was able to manage with trains, buses. I've been
Trains,
all over
public
Europe with
transports.
not even flying, so simply by
Ah,
train
yeah.
and bus, I've been all around Europe a few times.
But that shows that how connected these cities are with public transports and flights and trains, which is also one of the things that I really inspire. Even that is the same feeling that I had. A lot of people ask me, "You don't have a driver's license?" I said, when I had a good public transport that goes to my work, and when I have a good flight that could fly to all the tourist destination, I really haven't had that as my first priority. My first priority was always to get through the permanent residency and language, and these were the numbers that were really important for me
For the people who are
personally.
Europeans, again, this is something that you're not used to.
Well, I have to remind that.
Yes, but that's the fun part of it, right? Remember, permanent residence is the thing that you get automatically after 5 years in Denmark. They actually have to go through a test and
Yeah,
and be
it
checked.
doesn't come automatically. We have to go to the grind. We have to grind and then finish all the exams that are relevant. And
Yeah.
for the Europeans listening again, this is the journey of an expat trying to integrate, and it takes at least 5 6 years on an average to actually get to a stage where he is a permanent resident and he could enjoy some of the benefits that Europeans enjoy in Denmark. And I think it's a challenge a lot of expats face, and I'm making videos to educate people on how I was able to do it. And feel free to check out with also a lot of expat stories that Narcis is also publishing in his weekly newsletters about how you could educate yourself and try to thrive in this economy. But getting back to this driver's license, Narcis,
Yes.
I'm surprised that you are trying for driving license. My story is a bit different. I have an Indian driving license. I've
Okay.
seen people in my company exchange licenses. Like, so they had a Canadian license. They gave the Canadian license. They got the Danish license. Nothing, just a one-day process. I've
Oh
seen
yeah.
a Norwegian guy exchange licenses. I've seen South American countries, some of them, not all, exchange licenses. But being a non-European country like India, if you just go and hand over your Indian license, they say I can surrender my Indian license, but I have to go through a theory and a practical exam, just like everyone does. The only difference is I get to take the exam right away. So I could just surrender my Indian license, get a medical check, and then like basically they do I test, and then my general practitioner, the GP, will give a certificate to the examinator saying that this guy or this person is physically fit to take the test, and that's it. But the fee is huge. I would say it's a lot of money because
How much?
for
How
the
much?
exam, yeah. So start with the examination fee will at least come to like 1,500 to 2,000 kronas, and I will tell you the numbers split by split now. So in order to apply for the exam, I think it's a fee. the driving license schools charge, which is 300 kronas. It's free by the government for the commune, but the private institutions, they charge 300 kronas roughly to book a slot for you. And you can actually take the exam many times as you want to. There's a limit, but you can take multiple times. This is the theory part. Every time when you fail, you have to pay 1,000 kronas for the theory again. That's a lot of money. So make sure that you pass the first time. So you end up just paying 300 kronas minimum. And then the second half of the exam is about practicals, where you will be tested with driving skills in real life. And for the fee part, so since I understand some Danish, but I wanted to still have an English person to give me instructions, there is a translator fee. There is a fee for renting or loaning the car for a couple of hours for the driving test, and then there is a fee for the exam. So you put together, you will sum up around 2,000 kronas for one exam. And this exam fee is just 2,300 kronas without taking any classes. Now, when we talk about classes, this is where it gets really interesting, because if you haven't really driven before, or if you don't have any licenses, you end up at least paying 15,000 Danish kronas for one person getting a license. And
Yeah,
that's a lot of money.
that's what I'm paying, Aaron. I mean that it's so there's not special prices for non-Europeans. To be honest, that's what everyone pays.
But but
Europeans, Danish, everyone pays the same.
Yeah, but if you could drive, but you still pay, that's my pain, because I know how to drive, but I drive in the completely other side. So I drive in the right side of the car, and now I have to switch over. So I'm pretty skeptical, like how can I then pass the exam? So every time I take a test, I pay around 1,000 kronas for sessions, and now I've played more than like 6,000 Danish kronas for the sessions that I took. And I felt like I know how to drive, but there are a lot of rules that I have to know. So it makes sense to go through the
Oh,
process of knowing the rules, because driving is one part, but the rules are the most important part. And one example is that when I drive, I've never given orientation. Like you have to turn your body and then give an orientation and see manually that if someone is approaching from the
of
side
course.
angle. Of course, I mean, but in India, to be honest, orientation was not, I would say, I haven't, of course, I've read in books, but I don't see people do orientation a lot of times. They look at the rear view mirror, they look at the central mirror, but hardly people orient
Use
themselves.
the
And it is a practice that people have to do. Yes, it's by law, but are people doing it? And I also challenge myself to say, uh, it is true, because when I drive my bicycle, I still follow rules. So I think it's important to follow the rules, but it is also very very hard to uh, crack the exam, pass the exam in the first attempt. If I could do that, it will be a miracle for me. I'm hoping to
Yeah,
pass the
that's
first
it. Look,
attempt.
I'm also at the driving path time,
Yeah.
so I need to take my exam when driving now. I passed already the
Okay.
theory,
Oh,
so
you passed
what
theory.
I
Cool. Congratulations.
yeah, yeah, thanks. But my luck was that I was supposed to go and take first theory exam, and then
Okay.
he said to me, "Well, you need to have some documents with you." Because I simply went there and said, "I'm ready to take my exam. It's on this hour at this time." No, no,
Yeah.
no. You need to have your application, your
Yeah.
driving book. What is that? I
Yeah.
don't have
Yeah.
that. My driving instructor has that. Go talk to him. And they were like, "No, no, no. You cannot take the exam." Okay, whatever. And then while I was waiting to be reprogrammed to take it again, they changed the law and they allowed to take it on the computers without having to listen
Yeah.
to some person talking. I was like,
Yeah.
oh my God, thank God for that, because I cannot listen to that, because they were hiring some people with
Mm.
very questionable English level. They were trying some English from their own perspective, so I had to listen to them and pretend I understand while I choose the right version in 5 seconds. And I was like, someone was looking out for me. For me to pass, the law has to be changed. So
Mm.
they changed it. Now you can just look at the computer screen. You have written text. Inshallah.
That's a great. I actually liked I like the enthusiasm that you showed actually. One of my friend took the theory exam in an analog way, and then
Mm.
I took the exam in a digital way, where now I have only screens with touch. So I have to touch the screen, and I took the exam. I spent 25 less than 25 minutes. And I was closing my eyes. No, no, I'm going to fail. I don't know. I don't want to see myself, embarrass myself in front of the screen. But luckily I passed. And then I know the result now. And then I left happily because in couple of months before, the exam used to be where you get the notice from the commune few hours later. But now you see the result as soon as you finish the exam.
Exactly. So
It
you
is
can go ahead and
embarrassing, but it's also happier if you pass.
exactly. And now, funny enough, I was thinking about taking my driving test also on an automatic car because it's a lot easier. As you
Oh,
said,
yeah.
in Denmark, you fail immediately if you do not use orientation every time. So literally, so
Okay.
there's I looked at how they grade you and why they can
Mm,
fail you,
mm,
and one of the ones is simply immediate fail is if you have had to make a turn or anything and you did not orient properly
mm,
completely, they
mm.
can fail you on the spot.
My God.
So orientation is the highest importance. So I realized for me to be able to do everything and change the gear and everything, it'll be too much, too fast. I'll be too
Mm,
stressed. So I said, okay, I'll take my exam on an automatic car. And they
mm.
told me, oh, but if you take it an automatic car, you'll only be able to drive automatic cars afterwards. But guess what? The law has changed. So now you can also, even if you take it an automatic car, as long as you have done at least 7 hours of driving lessons on a manual car, you can
Mm.
still drive both types afterwards. So you
That's
see,
great news.
somehow my journey as taking a driving license has been. I'm not saying I have influence over legislation in this country,
You have.
but somehow,
Or maybe see they see the frustration that people have and they thought, okay, let me relax a bit. I think it's fair from your point that manual transmission, you find a lot of cars these days with automatic transmission cars. And especially women prefer automatic cars even in India. A lot of women, when they buy their first car, they buy gearless cars. And it's also less hassle. With traffic, you just keep on changing first and second gears constantly. It's a transitional thing, right? And I think it's good that the government decided to ease this, relax this, I would say. But
to be honest, more and more people buy electric cars, and all electric
yeah,
cars are automatic.
yeah.
And that's just a reality. I think it'll be basically just a, I don't know, a hobby to go
Mm,
to drive a manual car in the future. Anyway,
yeah, yeah,
it'll
yeah,
be like for those people, oh, I want a vintage car, and
yeah,
obviously that's gonna be manual.
yeah.
Um,
I actually like manual cars. Yeah, in India I drive manual cars. It's also in a way pleasing to drive. Automatic cars, I think the charm is lost in automatic driven cars. But like you said about the transmission part in a traffic exam or traffic condition, automatic is ease. You just accelerate, you brake, and then you enjoy the process of driving even in situations heavy traffic. And when I trained in automatic car, I realized my left pedal is always looking for a clutch, and I said like I am now keeping it idle. I don't have to use my left leg anymore. And my
yeah,
driver, the instructor was telling me, you make sure that you don't overdo what I tell you. Just use the right leg and try to control. You have only one option, either to accelerate or to brake, which is also, decision making is a lot less now. You don't need to put the clutch. If you're half clutch, you can still freak out, when you change gears and do reverse and stuff. So I think
yeah.
it's good for most of the beginners who are trying to
To
learn for the first time. So
to be
cool.
honest, what I'm looking forward for is self-driving cars. I am such a big fan, and fun fact: I used to work for Uber, for Uber headquarters
Okay.
many years ago,
Mm,
down in Krakow,
mm,
and I was part of this division where we were discussing about what's next for Uber, right? And there was self-driving cars test in Los Angeles, and there was this
mm,
flying taxis, VTL
mm,
propulsion
mm,
that you can go from one part to another. I
mm.
love that. I'm waiting. I'm ready. I'm absolutely ready to ride a car that is driverless. I mean, we even had in Aalborg a test of a bus without driver. It ran for a whole month, and
In
there were
Albo?
no accidents. Yeah.
Oh, wow. Okay.
So we
Just
are
sharing for
there.
the first time.
I feel like if I wait 2 more years with my driving license, I will take my driving license on a driverless car. To be honest,
I should reconsider your driving license, Narcissus now.
I
I
already
could
paid
see
for
that.
it.
So you
Might as
have no
well
choice
finish
now.
it.
It's- No, I think I've heard one of my friend told me, she told me that I don't know how to put reverse because my car is already automatically parking itself. She has a Tesla. And she said, why do you
Wow.
need to drive then if the car can drive itself? And I said it's too seldom that these days people are buying these automatic cars in Teslas. Of course, I'm not sure if everybody is turning on the automatic mode to drive them, but the trust is gaining and people are using it for parking at least because it's parking car in between two cars is also like a challenge in itself. And if an automatic car can do it easily, then I would rather do it, and I get the benefit of
Yeah, no, that's what
you
I'm looking
know,
forward
yeah.
to. I mean, I never been a big fan of driving in the first place, but I have to
Oh,
because now I moved in the suburbs of Aalborg, so I
yeah.
need to be able to drive a car.
You should drive long distances. Have you tried traveling with someone on a car, like a
Yeah, yeah, of course. I mean,
co-passenger?
imagine
Yeah.
we as Eastern Europeans, we have to go at least once per year home, and that's 2,000 kilometers away somewhere.
Yeah, I'm just surprised. How didn't you end up buying a license? Because I think it's one of the mandatory things that we people in India think to have is a driving license because then it's a craze for bikes. In India, it's a craze for bikes, mopeds, all these scooters and two-wheelers, racing cars. It's a very craze. I had I was fortunate to drive a bike and also had a fortunate to buy a car and drive car. But it's one of the things that people in India invest money in, and it's the other way around here. There's a lot of cars, invest in cars because I think only those rich people own a Harley Davidson or an Enfield and drive in the summer only for a few seasons. But in
Well,
India,
rich
it's the other
people
way
or
around.
gangsters. Uh, you know, if you want to be part of a gang in Denmark
Hmm.
of a rocker band, right? You need to have a motorcycle. So
What was
you don't need to be
I?
rich then, right? You maybe sold your house for it.
Yeah.
But then you have Harley Davidson, right?
Yeah. Yeah. Okay, Narcis, let's jump into the other big topic that I wanted to talk about,
Yeah.
which is so now we have spoken about thing that was exciting for both of us about the automatic transmission cars. Let's talk about unhealthy foods. That is also part of your focus areas in your newsletter. It says, according to several health organizations in Denmark, there is a recent regulation about how to place foods, especially those tempting foods and their positions in the stores. What is it all about?
Well, basically, it's a, not yet a regulation. It's a wishful
Okay.
proposal from them
Mm,
because they have realized that a lot of people because you know when you go at the checkout, right, you see a lot of
mm,
candy, chocolates, snacks, whatever they can push into you last minute,
mm,
and
mm,
many times you'll just take it, or
mm.
you see it at the entry of the, or you see it in the most visible places, or
Yeah.
next to items that you have to buy. So let's
Mm,
say that
mm,
you go a lot for milk, right? If people
mm.
buy a lot of milk, then you'll place next to the milk energy drinks, fast
Yeah.
food, whatever. That is
Mm,
that is very bad because a lot of people have share because they made like researches on the
mm,
population, and a lot of people have said that the only reason they buy that stuff is because of they get tempted by it. Many people don't even take their children to stores because of it.
mm, mm,
Uh, so it is about, because you have to think about from a, yeah, a lot of, there's two sides here. One side is the commercial side.
mm,
The company should be allowed to do everything possible to make as much profit as possible. But then you have to think on the other side. Well, if the public health gets impacted by it and more people use more days in hospitals, putting a strain
mm,
in our on our hospitals, right? That
mm,
means we
mm,
need to pay more taxes. So who's
mm,
paying it?
mm,
So we allow companies to make more money, but then we have to pay more taxes to be able to keep
mm.
our healthcare system running.
Correct.
Uh, because we fill up the hospitals because of obesity, right? I mean, 52%
Mm,
of people in Denmark have obesity. We are
mm.
more fat than we should be.
That is a surprising fact. My
That's,
assumptions are wrong now. I think half of Denmark's adult population is overweight, as you could see from the data.
yeah,
And is it from the Ministry of Health that has been put out?
yeah.
Okay,
This is
that's
official data.
interesting. Okay,
So 52% of the population is overweight, and then never mind talking about the 20% which are really overweight.
Severely overweight, right? Yeah, yeah, yeah.
Like, yeah, so I think we kind of got the wrong perspective of what overweight means, because we look at American movies and we see very, very fat people, and we think, okay, that is what it means to be overweight. That's not how it works when they look at overweight, right? They look at what is your expected weight compared to your height, and
Height,
then
yeah,
if
BMI,
you are 10,
body
20% more
mass.
than that, you're overweight.
Yeah, yeah, right. The BMI index, right? And I think that brings us to the topic of supermarkets across the globe. Like I've noticed in Indian supermarkets, there's a science behind it. There's a human behavioral research going back. So as human beings, when we take our kids, the last thing that the kid wants is before the cashier, before the area where you go and pay, you always find attractive candies. You always find the chocolates, and then you also have things like cigarettes and these beers and wines and exotic collections right next to the cashier, because even at that time they think the human brain has the, let's say, capacity to make choices, and those choices are actually not based on um, it's already, you have spent so much time walking through the supermarket, now you don't have anything to make but to pick something. So we pick unconsciously and say, you know what, doesn't make a huge difference, let me buy this. Or my kid is asking me for this toy, and then I'm going to add on top of whatever I have. So I've actually
Yes.
taken up something that I really don't want in the first place, and because of the behavioral human behavioral stuff, you end up having to purchase, let's say, 5 items which you never wanted in the first place. And it's always the case. So not just kids, but it's also adults behavior. So I went the other day, I went for buying meat, I went for buying hummus, I went for buying rye bread. You know what I actually came up with? Apart from whatever I have bought, I actually took the really good looking feastable chocolates that was right next to the cashier. There's also this protein bar which says 20% protein, but it's actually 16% in protein, but the remaining is also sugar plus a lot of preservatives. And then I also took the canned juice, which is not actually an extract from fruit, but you see the choices that I made. Even though I think that I'm making a healthy choice, it's also my behavior that is shaped with the surrounding that I see. And it's not just one supermarket, it's almost all the supermarkets. So yeah, you're right. And one way, human beings, with these choices that we make every day, we become, let's say, less healthier. On a long run, the ministry has every right to say that this is going to be a national problem when people become more
It is an
overweight
epidemic.
and epidemic,
We
right?
have an obesity
Yeah.
epidemic in Denmark.
Mm, mm,
That's bad. That's bad because
mm,
it is proven that people with higher fat content simply are more sick and higher
mm.
chance to develop chronic diseases, and is more likely to use the healthcare system
Yeah,
more
yeah.
often. That's
Diabetes,
not
for
fair,
example, right? Yeah.
right?
You know
Like if you
the
make healthy
diabetes
choices all the
capital of
time.
the world?
Sorry,
You know diabetes capital of the world? People with more number of diabetes
where?
in US. That's a huge market. The second most market is actually India, growing population, growing
Oh,
diabetes concerns. Yeah, yeah. And I think Denmark knows this. So they are actually concerned because I think seen from a Danish population perspective, the majority of the Danish population is workforce, in the workforce. So there's no
yes.
one to replace, right? And that's also something that uh, countries with less population care about.
Yeah, yeah. In
And
here,
yeah.
public health is very, very important because simply they looked at other countries and they saw that the healthcare system just simply spiraled out of
Mm,
like crazy, right? Like look at US and see how much it costs to go to the doctor. It's
yeah,
crazy, right? So imagine
yeah, yeah.
putting that burden on the people and not on the state,
Mm,
because the
mm,
state will be forced to make choices in the future. Okay,
mm,
we can't afford this anymore. What do we
mm,
do now,
mm, mm.
right? So and then it's
Agree.
unfair that because a lot of people make bad choices, then the ones who don't make bad choices have to end up paying for healthcare, even though
Mm,
they even though they only use it maybe once in their lifetime.
mm, mm. True.
So it's because I use it often ever since I have a child, right? We
Mm.
go with every little sign straight to the doctor. I mean, that's how it is. You don't want to risk it, right?
Yeah,
Imagine if I
yeah,
had to pay every time I went to the doctor.
yeah, yeah, yeah.
That would be a huge burden on
It is.
a new family, right? So
I agree.
I feel like okay, I understand freedom of commerce, and I understand that and nobody says to ban these things. You
Mm.
just don't put them in places where people. So if I go to buy chips, I will find them. God, if
Yeah,
I, they're hiding now cigarettes, right? But if you want them, you'll still ask for them at the reception. Give me
yeah.
cigarettes.
And they
Straightforward,
are
right?
right next to the cashier, so they didn't want to spend more time searching in the last row. It's probably lying behind besides them. So cigarette is not a choice that they have to spend more time. I think it's like you said, the water is not at a visible point, but the fresh the juices, the canned juices and the prime juices, they're all lying close to the
Yeah.
path, so it's also visible in front of people. And yeah, I think it's a corporate thing. But
I
yes.
think so if supermarkets will be more because right now it's not a regulation yet, and there will be a
Mm,
huge fight in the future between the interest of the companies and the
mm,
interest of the state. So right now the question is the companies can actually show some steps that they can
mm,
do better. Like I already see that they putting fruits at the entrance. This is new for a
mm,
couple of
mm.
years only. There
Ah,
wasn't the case in the past, right? So now every time you probably have got used to it, but now when you enter a supermarket, you should be seeing fruits first.
that's good.
Technically, most of them. I'm not sure if everyone respects this, but
Mm,
there's a unwritten convention. It's not a rule by the
mm,
state, but it's
mm,
between themselves. They've taken a
mm,
decision that they need to act more
mm,
in a more healthy way. So they put
mm,
actually fruits at the entrance. So you shouldn't see anything else besides fruits.
mm,
Unfortunately, some of them are kind of stealing the wave because now they started to put literally at the entrance a few other let's just say shelves, and you wake up with
mm,
all sorts of offers in those shelves and various
mm,
products which can also
mm,
be unhealthy foods. So some of
mm,
them are still not really fully respecting it, but
mm,
there is steps in the right direction, right? But more
mm,
could be done, right? Like you said yourself, what if we use this human behavior psychology to actually get people to use more healthy choices,
mm, mm,
right?
mm.
Because as far as I know, healthy options are not necessarily cheaper than unhealthy options.
That is
So
exactly rightly
they're
pointed out.
still
It's
making
also
money.
more revenue business. Yeah, yeah, yeah. We can make more revenue out of healthy choices also. That
So
is
why the
absolutely
hell they're
true.
not pushing more of
Yeah,
that?
yeah, yeah,
So
yeah, yeah,
to
yeah.
be honest,
That's
I
a
would
good
even
point.
ban water in supermarkets. I find it disgusting that I can buy
Why?
water. I mean, water you have it at your tap, right? Uh, it's perfectly healthy.
Yeah, from coming from a non-European country or country in India, I can't imagine to drink water from the tap. I first few months when I landed in Denmark, I really doubted. Everybody says to drink water from the tap. Is it really that clean? And I questioned a lot of stuff. But I've actually noticed it's a good thing that the country is able to supply consumable, drinkable water in the taps. That is very good news. But there's also like people have now choices to make. They want minerals in water, and they want water to taste even better. I think those are the choices that makes like, okay, I want to buy a canned bottle, the water bottle which has minerals and whatnot. You can add more amenities to that. So I haven't really fancied to buy a water bottle in Denmark. There were only few cases where I went to some communes where it by the government they say, oh, our public municipal supply line has been infected with this call.
Yeah, yeah.
What do you see? The levels of bacteria has grown, so we advise not to drink, and then people issue bottled water. Unless otherwise, I think it's free. But is it the same in rest of Europe, or is it in only few select countries in Europe that has?
I have a
Oh,
hard time telling you that to be honest because I would not remember. I've been in most of the European countries, but
mm,
not every European country has good tap water. No, definitely
mm,
not. I think it's only a couple of them who have it because it's very
mm,
difficult for especially larger countries to keep the drinking water at a good level. You know, there is an authority in Denmark who is responsible to keep
Mm.
the drinking water clean, and they're actually having to do a lot of work to keep it clean. They're
Mm.
buying, for example, lands around the water procession plants, so to make sure that farmers don't farm in there, and they're
Mm.
paying them off every year to not dump in certain rivers the
Oh.
pesticides. There's a lot of money spent to keep the people from poisoning our water. So
Mm.
it's a lot of work behind it. Like we take
And
it for
also really
granted.
good initiative. Yeah, yeah.
Clean water, tap water, yay! I'm so happy for it. But out there, there is, you know, that actually around every, let's just say, water work, because that's how it's
Mm.
called, right?
Mm.
Um, every water work is owned by its users. So that
Mm.
means you, for example, are part of a certain water work, and
Mm.
then you can go to the yearly general assembly and see,
Mm.
okay, how is the quality being maintained, what are they doing with the money, are they planning, because for example water work can also decide if the general assembly says, well, let's reduce the price if we make too much money, or let's invest it in increasing the capacity, or
Mm.
whatever, let's do something with this. For example, I'm
Mm.
very happy that my not water work but my district heating, they decided to use the money to produce electricity, and
Mm.
high during those year when it was very expensive the electricity, they sold the electricity and they made a lot of money. So that meant that I
Mm.
had a whole quarter where I didn't have to pay for heating, because I was part of a very smart district heating who thought about its customers, and they were using the money. So we as users in Denmark have a lot of power over our utilities, just we never think about it. So if you are
Mm.
connected to district heating, if you're connected to water, you are part of a group of influence. So you can go to the yearly general assembly and see what's happening out there.
Mm. That's actually interesting. I think I fall under this Ghent of the commune. I'm not sure if I fall under Hofor Van Vac. Hofor is a major supplier in major parts of Sjælland region, and there's a lot of plants. There's one in Gevninge, there's one in Torsbro. Because I worked in these projects when I used to work in my previous company, but I never realized that they had a union where a board where people could show up and contribute or participate
Yeah,
and
it's
take.
a general assembly because it's owned by the
Mm.
users. As I said, it's not owned.
Oh,
There's not the waterworks are not privately owned in Denmark.
okay.
They
So
are
it's
owned by
public.
the users.
Mm.
So
Good
but
information.
also they're not owned by the state either. So, uh, for example, if a waterwork can also go bankrupt if they manage
Mm.
badly the finances, and then people
Mm.
can wake up they don't have water in a certain area.
Mm.
Uh, it's a model where the state doesn't want to get involved, but they don't want to
Mm.
let private companies take over
Take
monopoly on
over. Mm.
water. So they
Monopolize. Yeah.
find this is the best model in between.
And what do they call this model as?
I don't know if there's a name for it, to be honest.
Yeah, but it's
Public
interesting.
partnerships, or yeah, I don't
Yeah,
know.
yeah. I will dig some
User,
research about it. It's interesting to know.
yeah,
I thought it was
democratically.
monopolized by private companies, but it's interesting to see. Maybe I should
No,
dig
there is
deep
no
and study
official
about it.
owner. There's no profits going to someone. They
Okay,
can come back to the users if something. There is a
interesting.
lot of such companies in Denmark. They are like
Mm.
called democratically owned companies.
Mm. That's an interesting topic to actually dive deep into in the future sessions.
Yeah, yeah. There is like
Yeah.
insurance companies that you can choose like that
Mm.
way. There is all
Mm.
sort. Arla is such a, well, no, Arla is a bit different because it's owned by farmers, and there's a specific
Mm.
people who are those farmers.
Correct, correct, correct.
Different.
Now I can connect some dots. Yeah,
No,
cool.
but I think
Yeah,
we covered a lot of topics for today.
yeah.
I told you, Aaron, you were doubtful about 1 hour, but you can easily get into 1 hour of
More
podcast.
than an hour actually. Yeah.
And I know a lot of our listeners got used to that 1 hour format.
Okay,
Uh, so we
but
will
it's
try it out.
I think first of all, thank you for signing up with this collaboration. What I actually liked in this interview process or podcast, we were able to share perspectives from two different, as you pointed out in the initial part. We are able to point out how different we are, but we also still be able to talk about it and share this knowledge or insights to expats living or trying to move, to get more information, to be more informed about the situation. And I've learned so much from the weekly articles that you've been posting for almost 4 years or more than 4 years. I'm not sure, but so which is now
4 years.
interesting to yeah. So which is now growing into a different platform where we actually talk more about or dive deep into such topics, which is an absolute privilege. Narcis, thank you so much for being on the first ever conversation around last week in Denmark. What would you like to say as a closing comments before we end this podcast?
As a closing comment, I can say that let's hope this trial run works well, and
It will.
we can get to see the Last Week in Denmark podcast being alive for as long as possible. So
Yeah.
thank you, Aaron, for getting involved and bringing it back to life, and hopefully we'll see that the people come back to it. It was quite popular back last year, and hopefully people will find it interesting once again. So otherwise, thank you so much for listening and watching us, and see you next week, basically.
See you next week. Thank you.
Bye.